And so far, Mark Carney has said nothing about the canola producers. It's like he doesn't care about Western Canadian producers. You know, I had my team check his Twitter account. He hasn't tweeted a single thing about canola, yet he's been able to tweet about International Cat Day. So isn't that nice?
Mainstream media just confirmed again that being far right and a conspiracy theorist just means being right far sooner than they are. I'm Jasmine Lane. Subscribe, like, follow, comment your thoughts down below, and share this video. Mark Carney got absolutely roasted in Pierre Poilievre's press release earlier today. His lies, his failures, his absolute silence on dealing with the most economically harmful tariffs hitting our country, not from Donald Trump, but from China. All that and more coming up today on Over Opinionated.
So Monday I'm going up to have a one-on-one meeting with the Prime Minister, and I've told him how I feel. We got to create the environment, and just a few things we can do can really change things. Number one, we're taxed to death. Simple as that. And, you know, highest tax bracket's 54%. And believe me, you don't have to be making millions to be at 54%. You make a couple $100 grand and 54%, and when you go out shopping, all the taxable goods that you buy, so we're left with nothing in our pockets. And Economics 101, put money into people's pockets. They're going to go out and spend it. It's simple.
Doug Ford is completely correct there. Yes, Canadians are taxed to death. If you go and compare taxes in other developed nations, Canada is one of the highest. And so it sounds really great to sit on a podium and go, oh yeah, lower taxes, everybody. I'm going to push for that. Even though I'm buddy up with the Liberal government who's doing the exact opposite and has done the exact opposite over the last decade plus. Even though me and Corey Tonight have been totally vilifying Conservatives, and Pierre Poilievre in particular, likely for their own malicious reasons behind it, which could have then caused a lot of people in Ontario to not vote Conservative. I don't know if that's the case, but it could be. And the hypocrisy of it, too, is just astounding, because Doug Ford stands on that podium, I'm for the people, we're taxed too high, while his own government continues to prop up failing industries with endless subsidies coming from a provincial and a federal level, instead of just cutting the red tape that is strangling them in the first place. Why are you trying so hard to make EVs in Canada happen when it's just not happening? People don't want it. How many more billions are you going to consciously make the decision to put into a failing industry that is essentially non-existent? You can't have both there, my guy, because a subsidized country, that's not prosperity. That's not a country where you're able to cut taxes. Quite the opposite, actually.
So I support the free market. I believe that we should buy the energy that is most affordable for Canadian families. I don't believe that we should bring massive government subsidies or force Canadian consumers to pay higher electrical and power bills to subsidize solar panels or any other particular type of energy production. We need to harvest our resources in this country. We have cheap, affordable natural gas. We have hydroelectricity here in Saskatchewan. We have the biggest supply of uranium anywhere on Earth, something Corey Tucker, our nuclear energy critic, could tell anyone about. And those sources of energy are Canadian-made. They are affordable. My purpose when it comes to energy, we need low-cost energy. The best way to defeat poverty and expand the quality of living of our people is to have affordable, reliable energy using the massive abundance of resources we have beneath our feet. But unfortunately, Mark Carney is keeping in place Trudeau's anti-development laws, C-69, which makes it 19 years to get a mine approved. So how are we ever going to get the critical minerals and the uranium to the surface in order to power nukes? How are we going to get hydroelectric dams built when they have to go through 10 or 11 years of reviews by the federal government? How are we going to get natural gas production booming to supply generators for electricity and heat for our homes when Carney's anti-development laws keep everything in the ground? The reality is, Mark Carney is not different than Justin Trudeau. He is worse. What we Conservatives are calling for is a Sovereignty Act. which will allow us to become energy independent. Let's legalize pipelines and rapid development by repealing C-69. Let's legalize shipping of oil off the North BC coast by repealing C-48. Let's get rid of the energy cap to produce more Canadian petroleum in Western Canada, Newfoundland, and Labrador. Let's get rid of the industrial carbon tax to produce more at a lower cost. And of course, let's get rid of the Carney tax and let people drive any car or truck that they choose. That's what we're saying. Cheap energy, a powerful economy, a sovereign Canada.
To put it simply, if an industry can't compete because of government-created rules and costs, you remove the barriers. That's what anybody with a brain cell would do. You don't throw taxpayer cash at it so that it can limp along another year while it still continues to fail, and then just throw some more taxpayer cash at it. Why do you think Mark Carney's freaking deficit is projected to be as high as it is? Holy crap. Like, subsidizing failure is not leadership at all. It's political cowardice. And every single time that we do that, we subsidize, we offer these bailouts, we just lock ourselves in to even more years of the exact same system that Doug Ford allegedly opposes. High taxes. Yeah, you can't pay for programs and bailouts without money coming into your country. And when the money's not coming into your country due to your own policies, you get high taxes. And it is just astounding to me how many people are falling for this. And every time the government announces new bailouts and subsidies, which, yes, absolutely, there are people who need those, everybody's like, yeah, they're so great. And it's like, whoa, why don't you look at the root cause here? Because those same people, while it may be so great that they're getting some help right now, it's going to be 10 times worse in another year when we're in the exact same position with an even bigger deficit and even less money in our country. And that is when, the media will start slow dripping you stories like this.
Is it time to revamp Canada's old age security program? As baby boomers age, the cost of the federal government retirement pension is expected to soar from $77.8 billion in 2023 to a whopping $276.5 billion by 2060. That's more than triple. And Generation Squeeze, a charitable think and change tank, is urging the federal government to take action.
This is a quote from the Global News article, the written one that was posted about this, where it says OAS, old age security, is the single largest growing part of the federal budget. And part of that reflects large subsidies for retirees with combined household incomes of $180,000. The $42 billion government deficit in 2025 was projected in the last fall economic statement. And now it will be much higher because of tax cuts and new NATO promises, says Paul Kershaw, who is also a professor at the University of British Columbia. You could spend our OAS money differently right now and achieve other goals without having to raise taxes. And you could do so, for instance, by asking more financially secure retirees to take slightly less.
In asking financially secure retirees who have six-figure household incomes to be open to accepting slightly less OAS of subsidies so that we can repurpose some of that funding to eliminate seniors' poverty and even have some money left over to help their kids and grandchildren who are struggling with affordability issues in housing and childcare and post-secondary.
There is a lot to take away from this, and my first gut instinct is this is totally insane. However, when I think about it a little bit more, I realize that the government cannot spend into nothingness. So with rising deficits, which are far beyond the initial $42 billion that was projected, to double down on benefits such as these without any reform, it actually does seem a little irresponsible, especially when you have everyday Canadians who are struggling with housing, wages, childcare, and these lavish retirement payouts do kind of highlight poor prioritization. You could also add that all of the foreign aid and numerous other stupid things we spend on adds to that. So I feel like there's a whole plethora of other issues that should be targeted way before this one is. But there is also this huge generational disconnect because younger Canadians are drowning in costs right now with homes and debts, people who are able to have families. However, the policy isn't focused on helping them at all. It's focused on helping seniors who control votes in many cases, like we saw with this last election, and when you look at the data, as well as entitlement. And so what this group is advocating for is more so intergenerational fairness, and for the government to reform a policy that, by all accounts, statistically does give way too much to people who perhaps don't need it. Having said that, if you're somebody who is collecting this and you have contributed your entire life to taxes, I honestly I'm not opposed to you getting a large sum of money, even if you have a higher net worth, let's say, than somebody else. There's so much reform and change that needs to happen here, because even just the fact that old age security is one of those things, and it's a program that Canadians actually paid through a lifetime of taxes, could potentially be on the chopping block, or at the very least, they want you to have that in your head right now, seems really, really unhinged. Like, how on earth can you tell us that, oh, well, there's just not enough money to maintain OAS without some reform or cuts, yet somehow there's always money for foreign aid checks. There's always money for corporate bailouts, green slush funds, bloated bureaucracy, stupid trips and vacations that do and mean absolutely nothing.
Signed a deal to sell $750 billion of their energy products to the Europeans. Not a single dollar of European commitment to buy Canadian energy. It seems like since Prime Minister Carney took office, it has been American tariffs up and Liberal elbows down. We are seeing a back down and a failure. But we take no delight in this because as Carney fails abroad, Canadians pay the price at home.
I think we need to cut the grass to expose the snakes first and foremost. We need to end the corporate welfare, end the subsidies, and promote our industry so that subsidy is not needed, so that they are competitive. All of the things that Conservatives have been calling for, have been wanting to do for the last decade.
Time's running short. We now have a massive tariff, with the likelihood of even greater tariffs coming on us at some point. We're also looking at a further increase in terms of the debt load the federal government is going to have to undertake to protect and shield certain industries from those that have been targeted by the Trump administration and tariffs. But, in the midst of all of this, we would normally say, well, we can, I hate to use the word pivot, back to where we have our strength. And that's not just our forestry and agriculture sector, it's our oil and gas sector. At a time in which we could be selling more, maybe doubling, even tripling the amount of oil that we could send to the world, that has indicated by the many world leaders who've come to us looking for natural gas and oil. We've instead followed through on the path of the past 10 years, a path of restriction and a path of devastation and no certainty and clarity in terms of our future. And what does that mean? For our friends in Ontario and Eastern Canada in particular, you may not be aware of it, but 10 to 15% of your economy depends on the oil and gas sector. I know it's trendy to talk about, other little markets and AI and subsidies for electric battery manufacturing and battery cars. That doesn't create wealth, nor does it pay the bills, much less the debt and the social programs that you and I take for granted.
So again, we have another story of liberal cowardice that is dressed up and spoken about in a way that leaves you thinking, oh yeah, maybe that's fiscally responsible.
Here in Canada, things are not changing as he promised they would. In fact, they are actually getting worse. In replacing Justin Trudeau, he claimed that things would be different. Well, they're different only in that they continue to worsen. There have been many grand announcements, high-profile meetings, and grand statements, but none of the results promised. Government spending is growing faster than ever, faster than when Justin Trudeau was Prime Minister. Inflation and the cost of living continue to rise. Housing costs, which had already doubled, are now rising faster than before. And we see that the home building numbers are worse today, even after Carney promised that he would double them. Crime rages in our streets as catch-and-release laws still release the most dangerous monsters to terrorize our communities. Carney has kept Justin Trudeau's out-of-control immigration numbers. Worse, the Liberal government has lost track of 600 foreign criminals with records of committing crime in Canada who should have been deported but are now wandering our streets, God knows where, doing God knows what. Low-wage temporary foreign workers take jobs and drive wages down for our youth. No major projects, such as pipelines, have been proposed, approved, or begun construction. His energy cap, Carney's energy cap, industrial carbon tax, and continued support for banning pipelines, for the laws that ban pipeline, are keeping our resources in the ground and making us more dependent than ever on the Americans. So much for, he said it was going to be build, baby, build. So far it's been block, baby, block. He's not actually getting anything built. He's all talk and no action. Things are not different. They are getting worse.
And while the media and the government can go ahead and rage bait all day long about Donald Trump, ooh, he's so scary and bad, at the end of the day, we have tariffs imposed on us from China that are more harmful to our economy than all of the other tariffs imposed by Donald Trump combined. And Mark Carney and the Liberals have been silent on the issue. And worse, they've even thanked the Chinese government for doing this by allocating a $1 billion contract to them instead of a Canadian company.
We lament the fact that Mark Carney has been so silent and so weak, failing to stand up for our farmers against these tariffs. Meanwhile, Carney, continues to provide a $1 billion taxpayer-backed loan for BC Ferries to buy Chinese-made vessels. Can you imagine that? The sign of weakness that Carney is sending to the dictatorship in Beijing. You tax and tariff our farmers, and we'll give you a $1 billion loan to create jobs in your country. That kind of weakness has led to failure after failure. Remember, Mark Carney promised that he was an international man of mystery who was going to negotiate deals and end tariffs. Well, what's the result been so far? Let's start south of the border. Since Prime Minister Carney took office, the Americans have doubled tariffs on Canada, while they've signed deals with Europe, Japan, and other countries. They have increased penalties and increased the number of tariffs. Meanwhile, Mark Carney has made concession after concession, removing the digital services tax and counter tariffs while getting absolutely nothing in return. He sent his ministers to Mexico to try and get a bilateral deal with them. The Mexicans sent the Liberals packing. Yeah, he's done photo ops in Europe, but he hasn't got any deals, while the Americans have signed a deal to sell $750 billion of their energy products to the Europeans. Not a single dollar of European commitment to buy Canadian energy. It seems like since Prime Minister Carney took office, it has been American tariffs up and Liberal elbows down.
And I will leave you with this, a further roast, while literally just telling the truth and pointing out how much the Liberals don't care.
Well, first of all, let's recognize that China's tariffs on our canola producers are totally unjustified. They had already targeted our beef producers before there were any electric vehicle tariffs imposed on them. So the Chinese government has mistreated our economy for many years. I believe the first thing we should do is cancel the $1 billion federal loan that Mark Carney is extending to BC Ferries to have them buy Chinese ships. Mark Carney is giving $1 billion of shipbuilding contracts through a taxpayer-funded loan to the Chinese government and the Chinese economy. That is crazy. At a time when they're targeting our farmers, I think we should look at ways we can penalize the regime in Beijing for targeting our farmers. And so far, Mark Carney has said nothing about the canola producers. It's like he doesn't care about Western Canadian producers. You know, I had my team check his Twitter account. He hasn't tweeted a single thing about canola, yet he's been able to tweet about International Cat Day. So isn't that nice? We need a prime minister who will actually stand up for all Canadians, including and especially our prairie producers. Thank you.
There were so many other stories I had on my list to cover today, but then, Pierre Poilievre came out with that press conference and it got me all fired up. Make sure that you are subscribed, you're following me on other platforms as well. Like and comment your thoughts down below and share this video. Tomorrow's episode is going to be very juicy. We're going to be talking about Mark Carney and Brookfield Asset Management that is reportedly benefiting from your blood. Yep, that's a real thing. Conservatives even filed an official release about it earlier today. We will also be touching on the amount of money that is going to make your jaw hit the floor that the Canadian government has spent on housing literal, not being dramatic, terrorists here in Canada, people involved in ISIS in Canada that you're paying for, by the way, among a number of other topics. So stick around for that. Hit that notification bell if you haven't done so already, so you are the first to know when a new episode is uploaded. I'm Jasmine Lane, and I will talk to you very soon.